Each of the pueblos has a characteristic set of designs and use of colors that makes it kind of easy to pick out individual works and connect them to the pueblo of origin. We've already seen black on black, which is Maria Martinez's motif essentially coming out of San Ildefonso Pueblo. We've also seen coming out of Acoma the very fine line, kind of expansive designs in geometric patterns that are produced. The Zuni, in contrast to those two, are pretty famous for giving us figural images coupled with geometric decorations. These vessels tend to be decorated with relatively graceful imagery that fits the shape of the vessel. Characteristically also, the neck portion, and that would be the section right up here that I'm talking about, is separated from the swelling belly of the vessel below. There is usually a clear separating line that connects or disconnects rather those two zones. We'll get a closer look at one of those because those lines tend to have a broken space in them. The designs overall tend towards abstraction, sometimes so much so that it's very, very tough to identify what we are looking at. And that's going to be the case for the one that is, this is figure 217 in our textbook, and this one right here, which is on the right of the illustration in our textbook. Both of these are Zuni. That's the name, that's one name for the pueblo. And these are water jars with a kind of pinched opening at the top with the idea of protecting the precious liquid which would be carried on the inside. The image that I have on the right is a blow up of that vessel, and I'd like us to come over here. We can see this is the neck design, this is the division, this is the belly design. And this has been interpreted in a number of different ways. I'm going to go with the idea that it is an abstract bird design. And these vessels from Zuni Pueblo are very, very famous for their images of birds. Why birds? Well, birds can fly and get in the sky very close to the heavens and to the spirit world and to the Great Spirit. They also become symbolic for carrying prayers in terms of even the image of a feather itself, a symbol essentially associated with flight and of going upward to the spirit world. So how can I possibly make a bird out of this? Well, this region right here has been interpreted. Can't guarantee that I'm telling you the truth about this, but it has been interpreted as the eye of our birdie. And that interpretation is based on the fact that sometimes potters put a little mark in the center, which would be the pupil for the eye. So we have something to go on. If we have a birdie here, then this would be the leg, this would be the body, and this would arch around and become the tail. As a part of this, of course, we're seeing that everything is breaking down into step designs. Those step designs may reference a variety of things, including the construction or design of the Pueblo system itself, the architectural forms, which we'll see shortly. It can also reference water in this idea again of lightning, but also in the idea of mountains. And I cannot tell you with any kind of certainty what actual reference is being made by those designs because they've simply become too abstract. Let's see if I can do any better with the one on the left. We're looking now at this vessel, which follows the same kind of pattern as the one we just saw. There is a neck design, and that is divided. In this case, we have a double line. And on the belly of the vessel itself, we have an image that's usually called deer in his house. And I think we can find the deer, and I think we can find the house of the deer. Both of the deer that we can see in the slide that I have are crafted with what is referred to as a heart line. That heart line runs through the mouth of the animal to the interior of the body in the proximity maybe of the heart of the animal. It's associated with a number of things. One is the Zuni water spirit, which would be life-giving. So the line is often associated with ideas of life and also with breath, with things that allow us to live. That line also is frequently associated with the path of the spirit. And just a reminder, we've got 3 tiers, and the spirit can come from, let's say, the sky to give us strength and help us in our level. Surrounding our deer with the heart line, there is something that's referred to as a kind of house, and it does look a little bit like that, a kind of arcing shape that provides an enclosure for the deer, and this is common. It's been suggested that this form also has grown out of a very, very simplified form of a butterfly, becoming increasingly stylized. If you would like to investigate that as a possibility, you could see the wing of the butterfly, wing of the butterfly. This would be part of the antenna system, I think, of the butterfly, maybe the head of the butterfly. Okay, why a butterfly? Well, butterflies fly, and anything that flies in the sky can get to the spirit world. But also, of course, butterflies go through metamorphosis. They change, and their change can also be associated with the cyclical changes of the season and with ideas of rebirth and renewal. I can't tell you if that was intended, but I can tell you it's a big maybe. Underneath our deer and possibly our butterfly is a series wave shapes. We've seen these before, and I think we can be pretty comfortable in associating those with water. Appropriate for a water vessel, references to ideas of the importance of water, the continuation of water, and its association perhaps even with the agricultural cycle. This is the way in which these water jars would actually have been used. The ladies of the Pueblo would go down to the mountain spring or the river, wherever one could find water, fill up these vessels, and bring them back to the Pueblo, and they would do this by balancing them on their heads. There is a curved indentation in the bottom of the vessel, which would make it easier for the women to do this, but quite honestly, I can't imagine being able to do this myself. These are images that do show the way traditionally, and this is no longer done because there are better sources of water today, but in the past, this was a regular routine for the women to provide water for cooking and for bathing and for washing, anything that would make the family run more smoothly, which required water. The photograph on the left is by Edward Curtis. He's an important photographer. We're going to take a look at him later because he helps to frame the way in which people in the United States view the Native Americans. So he's an important player in creating an image, essentially, of the Native American peoples. These vessels often have an interesting feature that I also want to point out, and it is a broken space in the line that separates the neck area from the belly of the vessel below. And you can see it in this one, which is the image in our textbook. The broken line is said to be a line referencing the life of the potter, the person who makes this vessel and actually paints the vessel. And it is a reference to a kind of lifeline which is not yet done. In other words, the person is still living and is still seeking assistance from the realm of the spirit. But this is one of the kind of, I'm going to say, interesting qualities of design that, very subtle, has been introduced into the vessel design. You can't always see it in photographs. And in fact, I do not think it shows up in the image that we have in our textbook because we're looking at the other side of the vessel, but it's an important inclusion in terms of iconography. Okay, this is another one, and I'm sorry I can't give you the broken line because we're not looking at the right portion of the vessel, but I can show us another image of the deer in his house motif, which is one of the rather famous images coming out of Zuni. It is our deer again with his lifeline or his heart line or his spirit line or his breath line, however you want to describe it. Maybe inside a butterfly. That's a pretty abstract image, but kind of does work for me in terms of being a spirit form, a creature that can fly to the heavens underneath a series of, I'm going to call them spirit birdies, and maybe in the circular shape here and in the circular shape here with a dot in the eye, you can give a little more credibility to that very abstract interpretation of that vessel that we first looked at, that I was claiming was a rain bird. Rain birds are often parrots, macaws, that are depicted on Zuni vessels. One last thing to add, and that is in the upper zone, the neck zone. I'd like to pick this out, and I do not know if I am correct, but I'm going to suggest that may in fact reference a feather. Feathers are often used in prayers. Of course, feathers are associated with birds. Birds fly to the heavens, getting near the Great Spirit, and therefore it would be an appropriate inclusion on a water vessel, basically indicating that there are prayers that the waters will continue, the life-giving waters which are needed at the Pueblo. Interestingly enough, it was the dry conditions, the desert-like conditions for the Hopi and the Zuni Pueblos in the area after contact that helped to protect them. By protect, I mean keep them more isolated from European contact, because the Spanish were not particularly interested in this region because it was simply too dry. As a result of that, these folks were able to maintain their traditions relatively untouched until sometime in the late 19th century. These vessels are, with the motif that we're looking at, the deer in his house, are going to emerge around that time and are still made today. So I'm going to say they're associated with an awareness of the ability of the Zuni or the Hopi potter makers to be able to sell their wares outside of the pueblos, which has provided over time a source of income that could come in, particularly through images that are created, objects created by the women. One last word about the Zuni and also the Hopi, their neighbors. This is Zuni Pueblo here. This is Hopi Pueblo located over here. It's believed that both of these people today are the descendants of the original folks living in this region, and that would be the ancestral Pueblo, and perhaps also Mimbres or Hohokam as well. But we do believe in the 12th and the 13th centuries there was a migration, that people were probably forced to move to new locations, but that they have stayed in these locations ever since and maintained the traditions of their ancestors even through the 21st century.